Hey, this is Brian Viglione. Welcome to my drum clinic from New York City with our international friends here.
Hey!
How's everybody doing?
Great.
Daniel's going to introduce you.
With us we have...
Yeah, so again, drum fills, what I got a lot of problems with more than playing rhythms. There are types of drum fills that sound very blasting,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really quite fast, but the thing is that they're not on row, which is not you're going on two on each hand, ta 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 ta. You're going on one when you're changing from snare to tom one to tom two to floor tom, whatever you're doing.
Yep.
What's the main practice to, or is there any specific kind of practice to get to that fast but not rolling drum fills?
Yeah, I would say, like, if, for example, if you have, if you take a triplet, for example, start by placing the accents on different drums. For example, if you start on the snare drum, you would be hitting like your right, like if you start with the right hand, the first accent would be on the tom, and then the last two beats would be on the snare drum. And then you would hit with your right hand on the tom, and the next two beats would be there. But try placing the one of every triplet on a different drum, and keeping your bass drum on the quarter-note. So you're going back-a-da, 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 back-a-da. You know, so you've got a steady thing with your foot, and then work basically on, if you can remove one of those beats, try taking out the first of those three beats. So you're hitting your right foot on the one, and then you're hitting the the last two beats of the triplet with your hands. That's a way where you can get like some variation in those drum fills that breaks it up. It doesn't make it sound like a standard drum roll. It sort of breaks up the rhythm over different drums, and that will help give you interesting textures as well. And one of the other things that you can do is incorporating flams into the drum roll, and everybody knows that amazing drum fill that Dave Grohl plays in what is it? Nobody knows.
No one knows.
No one knows. The song,
knows.
yeah, the song by Queens of the Stone Age, and Dave Grohl is doing those fantastic drum fills in the chorus. That's a great way to again use really interesting rudiments and textures that aren't just like fast, all-out blasting drum fills, but something that really has groove to them too. So don't worry too much if you hear these guys playing really fast, complicated fills. I would actually encourage you to see how powerful you can make the drum fill with as few notes as possible first, and then build on that. That's the thing that made drummers like John Bonham so incredible to listen to, and that influenced everybody in rock music. Break it down to the minimal, and then see how musically you can build on that. And sometimes it calls for really complicated drum fills. You know, you listen to Slayer, and there's like some phenomenally complicated shit, but it comes from a place that complements the rhythm. It's never just arbitrary. And that to me sometimes can be the problem with listening to people in like the blast beat or death metal genre, is that it's really impressive to hear, but you don't really get a chance to appreciate the complexity because they're doing it throughout the entire song. You know what I mean? And that's cool. Like that's their taste, and that's that style. But again, just whatever you do with a drum fill, the first thing you want to think about is it complementing the rhythm of the song and making a good transition into the next section or phrase. You know, so try to keep that. And I would say go back and listen to some of the classics. You know, there's something about music from like those first sort of 20 years of rock and roll where the musicianship and the togetherness of the musicians playing was very special, and I think very different than what you hear in a lot of contemporary rock music. you want to hear the elements complementing each other. You want to hear that the bass guitar and the drums are working together as a unit and playing off of one another. And that's something to really, but also with some character. Part of the problem that I have with more commercial rock music is that it all tends to sort of sound the same. And what I would say to you is, even beyond listening to rock music, try to listen to some jazz stuff, listen to some whatever else.
I love jazz.
Yeah, exactly. For me, that's what made rock music in the 60s and 70s so exciting, was that there was a subtlety to the playing. And if you listen to a lot of contemporary metal, I feel like it misses a lot of that feel. It's sort of like people get too caught up thinking about, am I playing it as hard as possible, as fast as possible? Don't worry about that. That shouldn't be the end. That's like, I could use a sex metaphor here, but I won't. But it's like, focus on making it packed with as much feeling as you can. And you'll be surprised. You don't always need 1,000 notes to make that happen. Sometimes it's best to do it with just 2 or 3,
Exactly.
So the next thing that I want to talk about basically is, once we've spent a lot of time working on these and also approaching practicing rudiments not just as sort of a boring technical exercise, but really trying to listen to the sounds that you're creating from the drum kit, which is a bit difficult on this practice pad because it's made of solid rubber. However, on your tuned kit, you'll hear a wide range of tones, overtones, and in general, just beautiful sounds that you can work with. So I'd encourage you to actually hear each exercise you do as something musical, not just a sticking exercise. Really try to key into what you're eliciting from the drum kit. But then once you've got those down, how to incorporate those into the beat. One of the questions was, how can I incorporate a rudiment or basically a drum fill into a beat and keep the tempo consistent? So I definitely would recommend not only working on your rudiments with a metronome and your beats with a metronome just to teach your body the actual physical timing of everything, but to keep yourself in check if you feel the tendency to rush or drag the tempo when you go into a new rhythm or a drum fill. So one of the things I would say to start with is just keeping basic time on the kick drum. Keeping quarter notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and practicing rudiments like that, and just work through each one. What I used to do was something basically like this: work from singles through doubles, paradiddles, triplets, and a buzz roll like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that, just to basically get the coordination happening and developing. From there, you can start moving the rudiments around the kit. Start again with quarter notes and try just alternating hands with a single stroke roll. Try just going. And so on like that. That's with singles. And then you can do the same thing with doubles. Paradiddles, and so on through the whole thing. This also works practicing a buzz roll as well. Keep steady time and find the tempo where your hands feel most natural to keep time on the snare drum as well. So you got this 1, 2, 3, 4, and And above all, remember, start practicing slow. Make sure that everything you do is deliberate, in time when you can, and work on practicing things at different dynamic levels too. It's very easy to forget that and just sort of do everything at one volume. Try to bring it down as quiet as you can and work on that, because that's a whole different kind of discipline to really have the restraint to play quietly but in time as much as being loud, and both are equally as important.